What's up? What's happening? Welcome here to Lacrosse Now. Travis Eldridge with you with what is my final Lacrosse Now. More on that at the end. I don't want to take away from the great college lacrosse and stuff we have to talk about, including some great guests. So if you want to know more, make sure you listen all the way to the end of the show. But we've got some big stuff to talk about before we get to that. I'll give you what my top moments from this weekend in college lacrosse. Some really interesting results for both the men and women. So I'll give you my thoughts on that. We also have a couple of terrific guests. Loyola goalie Luke Stout coming off another big win for the Greyhounds here early in the season. They're 2-0, ranked 6th in the IL media poll after not really getting much national recognition at the beginning of the year. So we'll talk about that with Luke Stout, the Greyhounds goalie, who's off to a terrific start along with the rest of that team. We also have New Cannons Lacrosse Club coach Brian Holman joining us to talk about joining the PLL and what it means for him to be back coaching after some time off since he left the Utah job that he helped start in creating that D1 program. So a couple of terrific guests to get to, and then I'll share my news later on. But let's kick off with what we saw this weekend in college lacrosse because it was awesome. And we're going to start my top moments from the weekend with who I felt like won the weekend. And we're going to start with that Greyhounds team. And it's for a couple of different reasons. Loyola wins against a rival in Hopkins at home. Another great crowd on hand at Mount Ridley. Back-to-back wins over Maryland and Hopkins. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that if you're Loyola. Like, you're beating two blue blood programs that are right in your region, and you're finding yourself now ahead of both of them in the national polls. Like, this is a dream start for Loyola. But on top of the fact that they start 2-0 after the 13-8 win over Hopkins, they then also watch Maryland beat Syracuse on Saturday, which only bolsters that win over Maryland even more. So on top of the fact that you get a great win, you watch another one of your wins look even better, because I do like how Maryland responded after the loss to Loyola in beating Syracuse at home this past weekend. And now you've got a golden opportunity. You travel to Rutgers, a chance to prove that you can take this show on the road after two impressive wins at home, and you find yourselves as the class of the Patriot League at the moment, though the Patriot League had a great weekend. Loyola at the moment has maybe two of the most impressive wins in the country, and they look terrific. We're going to talk to Luke Stout in a little bit about this start for them and the defense. But offensively, the thing that stands out to me about Loyola, you look at what they did here at Hopkins. They had 6 players with 2+ points. That's really impressive balance. And what it tells you is that if you're trying to prepare for this team, well, what do? I mean, when you've got an offense that has been spread out like that, it creates some difficulties for a defensive coordinator trying to figure out who gets the pole at the midfield, who gets the number one defender. You've got guys who are proving that they can do a little bit, and sometimes that the group cumulatively is more impressive than just one star. And so I really like what this Loyola team has done. The other thing that I'll be really interested to see now as they look ahead to Rutgers this weekend, I mean, this isn't just in lacrosse, in a lot of sports. Defense travels, and this is a team that has played great defense and has gotten really good goaltending at home. I think that sets them up for success this weekend. So I'll be looking forward to watching and seeing how they match up with Rutgers. But they, for me, won the weekend because of their win over a rival. And on top of that, they also get some help from Maryland, who they just beat a week ago. Let's go to my most impressive win. And for that, we're going to go to the Penn-Georgetown matchup. Talk about athletes. We had terrific athletes on display in this game. I mean, it doesn't get much better than the Quakers, an Ivy League team that obviously has great size and athleticism. Sam Hanley in the midfield. And then you look at Georgetown, you got Graham Bundy in that midfield. You got 2 first-team All-American midfielders on either side in this one. And go figure, it's somebody else that completely steals the show. Cam Rubin goes off for 4 goals for the Quakers in a kind of a slugfest. Honestly, I could have seen this game going either way. I could have seen it being 16-15 or what we got, which was a 9-7 slugfest, a defensive battle. Shout out to Emmett Carroll, who made 18 saves for Penn in goal. He's now kind of waited his turn. He's getting his time for the Quakers and showing up in a big way to kick off the season. I mean, what a way. We talked about the Ivy League at the end of last year and how impressive they were. And the reason they got so many teams into the NCAA tournament is because what they did out of conference. Well, wins like this for Penn, setting up for another similar storyline at the end of this year, because that's a big time win here in a defensive battle. We mentioned Cam Rubin, who goes off for 4 goals, but to do this, the Sam Handley scoring just 1 goal, and it comes early, I think says a lot about the Quakers. I mean, we knew they were more than just Sam Handley, but Sam Handley, deservedly so, getting a lot of recognition here in the preseason. This proves this team as a whole can win in a couple of different ways. They can win scoring a bunch of goals. They can win a defensive battle. I think that's important. And for Georgetown, I think what it proves to us is that continuity, it's going to matter. And I think this Georgetown team is going to be very different at the end of the year than what we're seeing now. But with the new pieces offensively and trying to figure everything out, it just hasn't clicked yet. And they've got more tough tests. They got Notre Dame coming to their place this weekend. So it doesn't get any easier for Georgetown. But for Penn, most impressive win, at least in my book, this past weekend. On the women's side, we're going to go for my next 2 categories here. And I'm going to go for biggest weekend, like who had the biggest weekend, and that has to be the Northwestern ladies. I mean, they go on Thursday at home. They beat Notre Dame with Izzy Skane. I mean, she looks fresh as a daisy after missing last year due to injury. She's picking up where she left off a couple of seasons ago. She scores 10 goals in the win over Notre Dame. And then you watch them beat Boston College on Sunday at their place by 1 goal, where they get a terrific save right at the end to seal off the win. A huge weekend. Northwestern, to me, is the number 3 team now in the country. And I feel like there's a class that has started to create themselves at the top of the women's game. We talked about this a lot last year. And I felt like maybe some other teams challenged North Carolina, but North Carolina for most of the year felt like they were a class all by themselves at the top of the top of the rankings. I feel like there's probably a group of 4 right now that I think are a step above, with a group of 3 or 4 that are right there on the doorstep of challenging that top 4. I mean, with what we've seen so far, Northwestern, a 1-goal loss to Syracuse, and Northwestern, a 1-goal win over Boston College, certainly shows that those 3 teams are right there in the mix for that top, that upper echelon. So I think you got North Carolina, Northwestern, BC, Syracuse, all in kind of a top tier at the moment. I think Maryland, obviously a tough loss for them against Syracuse in the Dome. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I think they're going to be there at the end of the year. I think Kathy Reese is going to get this team that's pretty young and inexperienced in different spots, and they've got some new pieces that have come in as well. I think that this team's going to be very different at the end of the year than they are now. So I think they will be there in that top tier by the end of the year. And the question for me is, will Stony Brook in Florida prove that they should be in that conversation as well? North Carolina with an impressive win over Florida here early in the season to I think keep them just in that second tier at the moment. So Northwestern, huge weekend. I think they're right there in the top tier of women's teams here in the country. They're only lost to Syracuse by 1 goal. And speaking of Syracuse, brings me to my last topic here from the weekend. That is, the Syracuse women are number 1 in my book. Nothing to take away from North Carolina. They took care of business against Florida. They're undefeated. Good start to the season. But there is no women's team in the country that has 2 more impressive wins than what Syracuse has done. I know they're both at home, but to be Northwestern to kick off the season and then welcome in Maryland and beat the Terps, those 2 wins right off the bat are as good as anybody has in the country. And for that is why they got my first place vote in the Inside Lacrosse media poll. I think I was one of 5 who put them in first place over North Carolina. I think the Tar Heels are great. And this is nothing to do with them. It just has to do with what Syracuse's schedule has been and the hand that they were dealt early in the season and how they have passed with flying colors in 2 difficult tests. To me, they're the number 1 team in the country right now. I mean, 1-goal game after a quarter against Maryland this past weekend. In the second and third, they've run away from the Terps. Megan Tyrell goes off for 11 points. She's certainly living up to the billing as a potential player of the year candidate to wartime finalist coming back. She's going to be in that conversation again. And then Meg Carney coming off the injury, 4 goals to add in. And we talked about this in the preseason. Syracuse needed to stay healthy, which so far so good, knock on wood, that continues. And they needed to get some better goaltending if they wanted to be a Final Four team this year. Well, Delaney Schweitzer with 13 saves, 11 goals against, she does her job. And I mean, if the offense can put up 20, all you got to do is let up less. So if you can have double-digit saves and make some of the ones that you're supposed to make and maybe a couple you're not, with this offense, this team is going to be very, very good. And Delaney Schweitzer so far this year is doing that. She made 11 saves against Northwestern last week, just enough to help them get the W. So staying healthy and getting better goaltending, so far so good for Syracuse. And they have the 2 most impressive wins on the season to date in the women's game. So that's those are my top moments from the weekend. Speaking of top moments so far this year, the Loyola Greyhounds, the talk of the town on the men's side, had a chance to catch up with their goalie Luke Stout following an impressive 2-0 start. So off to one of the hottest starts of anybody this year is Loyola. We've got goalie Luke Stout joining us now. Luke, we were just talking about it before we get on. Like, you knock off Maryland and Hopkins to start the year. It's tough to get much better than that. How do you best describe the beginning part of the season for you guys?
I think, and like we were saying, especially compared to last year, I would say it's 110% an improvement. It really exciting. Anytime you beat a team like Maryland and then kind of follow it up, against another great team at Hopkins. Coach Toomey talked all last week about, how do we handle success, right? And that was a big priority for us. And it's hard, after beating Maryland, having to come back and beat a really good team the following week. And so I'm just proud of our effort and our focus kind of these last couple of weeks. And, now we've got another really, really good team coming up Saturday. So it's kind of replicating what we did, and hopefully, we can kind of build on it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it just keeps on rolling. You got another Big Ten opponent, Rutgers, coming up this weekend on the road. But I want to take you back because you're going into that Maryland game, second career start for you, and you're playing the reigning defending national champs. They haven't lost a regular season game in 2 years. Like, take me into the locker room when you're getting the start. It's your game to try to do this.
Yeah, well, for us, it's what you mentioned and kind of the bear that's in that other locker room, and then compounded by the fact that no one was really talking about us a little bit all off season, and rightfully so. We didn't do what we needed to do last year. So, kind of all off season, we've kind of been waiting for that moment. And we had a couple good scrimmages against Richmond, North Carolina, 2 great programs. And so, for us, it was kind of just like roll the ball out. We've kind of got nothing to lose, so to speak. And, and it's just a great opportunity in front of a great crowd. And we thought we had a really good game plan. Coach Toomey, Coach Dwan, Coach Van, they're so good with kind of just preparing accordingly on a week by week basis. And I think we have a really good mix of young guys, vets, older guys that maybe haven't had a chance yet, and I think a culmination of all that stuff, we kind of just went out there with a ball energy. And I think we may have caught them off guard a little bit early on. I think, playing great defense helped me out a lot. And then offensively, just taking really good shots against a really strong goaltender and a great defense in general. So, the energy kind of going to that game was incredible. And I thought we followed it up really well, like I said, against another good team in a really big rivalry game.
Well, you hit on something that I think is so surprising. Like, most years, you guys at Loyola do what you did the first couple of weeks. It may be a surprise that you win both, but it's not a surprise. Loyola has been a great program. I mean, you guys all were recruited in the Pat Spencer era, where was a top 5 program, making championship weekends. So not being talked about, how does that propel you guys to wanting to, have Loyola in the national conversation, a place that, you guys all knew what you were getting into when you picked the school?
Yeah, no doubt about it. that's, when I committed to Loyola, I think we were preseason. I think we were in the top 3. That was Pat's senior year. So, we kind of, all the guys here have an expectation, of where Coach Toomey's had us and where we need to be. And, last year and even my freshman year, we made kind of a good run towards the end of the year. We didn't win the same caliber of games that maybe we normally did, and so kind of bringing us back to that standard was a huge. It was kind of our goal going into this year, and like I said, we had some younger guys, but they're really talented, great kids, and coachable. And I think the culture that Coach Toomey's got kind of put in place and has had put in place, it's just about kind of going in and focusing on one day at a time. That's kind of what he says and how we take it. Just each practice trying to get a little bit better, and then all of a sudden, you got Maryland. It goes fast, but all of a sudden, the game comes and Maryland's on the sideline. So, but yeah, it's a good point.
Take me back, middle school, Luke Stout. If I were to tell you were going to beat Maryland, Hopkins, two blue bloods back to back, what's middle school Luke Stout thinking?
Middle school me, I would say, I probably maybe a little crazy. I didn't to West Tennessee High School, which obviously is kind of is pretty good tradition and has had some excellent players come through. But early on, middle school, elementary, I wasn't really a big lacrosse player. I played a lot of baseball, basketball, football, and I enjoyed lacrosse and I enjoyed playing it. But I didn't think maybe I'd be sitting here talking to you, talking about that stuff. So it's been pretty surreal in that respect, and I'm happy to keep rolling.
You mentioned West Jenny. I mean, you've got the John Galloways of the world. Like, how did some of those guys that came before you kind of create what we see now and with you in the college game?
Coach Galloway was somebody that, when I did kind of really start taking lacrosse seriously in maybe 7th, 8th grade, that he was somebody that I looked up to, and his play style, his game. I wore number 15 in high school. His goalie coach in high school was my goalie coach in high school. And so people have said we play somewhat similarly. And he's not the only one, there's been so many guys, from him to, Joe Fletcher, who came here and did some really good things. And Dylan Donahue, who I work a lot with back home, and he's running Platform Academy, doing some great things. I mean, those guys that we kind of grew up watching in high school, and then we finally, got our turn putting the jersey on, and it definitely motivates you, to do the right thing and to kind of follow in their footsteps and try.
You hit on the upstate New York thing. So why Loyola?
I think the recruiting is definitely it's a crazy journey, but I wouldn't have traded it for anything else. I think at the end of the day, it came down to a few different reasons. It starts with Toomey. It really did. He was genuine, and I was lucky to talk to some really good coaches and some great people, great universities, no doubt about it. But Coach Toomey is super genuine. His track record is undeniable. His past, some of the goalies that he'd worked with. And I felt that, Loyola was a place that I could come, and be 5 hours from home and kind of have it serve as sort of a second home, and he would, do what's in my best interest, both on and off the field, and same for everybody around us. So I think it kind of started with him. I looked at the size of the school. I'm a finance major, so the business program was really good. And kind of that culture, around lacrosse. We might not be a Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, big football school, but we kind of get a little bit of that effort, but mostly into lacrosse, which is kind of similar to where West Tennessee was kind of a lot similar. So, I felt at home, and I probably the best decision I could have made.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The crowds you guys had at Ridley here the last 2 weeks shows you exactly how much people at Loyola care about the sport of lacrosse.
Oh, it's unbelievable. When in my freshman year was the COVID year, so there wasn't fans, and so I've kind of been waiting, and last year all of our big or early games were away games, so this year was really our first opportunity to really see. I mean, they're awesome. It's an incredible environment.
All right. You mentioned Coach Charlie Toomey, and he's obviously a goalie himself. So I think it's always a unique situation, the goalie at Loyola playing under him. What's it like to have your head coach be so invested and so knowledgeable about your position?
Yeah, well, I would say it's twofold. I mean, it's incredible, but it's also difficult, because he demands perfection, and in turn that makes you a better player and person, to be honest with you. Coming in freshman year, I also obviously didn't get a senior year of high school, so it was almost like I hadn't played in almost 2 years, and I almost kind of had to relearn the position, so to speak, if that makes sense. And him coming in, kind of just breaking my game down a little bit. And the highs are great and the lows can be frustrating, but no one does a better job than he does. And the things that I've learned is paid off incredibly. And another thing I would say is, this year, his ability to kind of adjust his coaching style to his personnel, especially in the cage, has helped me, more than I could have ever imagined. And, I can't say enough about the impact he's had on me, in the cage and off the field.
Yeah, you're right. Like, he has probably more of an eye on your position than maybe any other coach in the country because of is tied to it. But hard to find better guys to coach it than him. Just for you, like growing up, how did you end up being a goalie?
So yeah, that's a good question. So like I said, initially I started out, it was, football, basketball, baseball. And, all of a sudden it was winter in upstate New York. I was in third grade, and my friend's dad was putting together a rec team, and called my dad, asked if I wanted to play, and I guess they needed a goalie. And my dad's like, sure, he'll come play goalie. And I was like, what? Really? All right, fine. And I stunk for the first, honestly, couple of years. I wasn't great. And it was painful, but eventually I was lucky enough to get really good coaching as I got older, and everything worked out. But it was definitely not prototypical start to the position, that's for sure.
I love the origin stories because it's such a crazy position. Like, so I feel like more often than not, it is your type of way. Like, somebody needed a goalie, you fell in love with it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's exactly it. And then obviously going to West Shenny, it was something I wasn't great at the beginning, and I was kind of teetering. And I got to give credit to my mom. You're not quitting. You go to West Tennessee. You want to stick with this. It'll pay dividends. And she was right. She was right.
Mom's always right. Why number 21?
Like I said, I wore 15 pretty much throughout my whole career, and so I got to Loyola, and 15 was taken actually by one of my housemates, Pacheco, and he wears it great. But I was kind of looking, and I wore 21 was the number I wore a little bit in rec basketball. My uncle wore it, a little bit when he was in high school. And so kind of looking at that, keeping that in mind and looking at some of the other options, I thought, yeah, why not? Just go with 21. And it's a cool number. I think it looks good. And so I had it now, I think 3 years in college plus the years in rec basketball, if that counts. It's worked out so far.
Yeah, so far so good for you. Before we talk quickly here about Rutgers, I got one more fun one for you. Mustang Sally, is that the best name in lacrosse? And I got to ask, like, what you guys call him in practice.
Yeah, for answer, absolutely yes. At least that I've heard. We call him Stang. That basically, that's the big one is Stang. I actually live with him, and he's such a good teammate, and man, he can play offense with these 2 goals in 2 games. Plus, he had some in the scrimmage. He's awesome. The name is almost as good as his game.
Seriously, he's living up to the name. He looks like a Mustang out there with how he's been going in transition.
Yeah, he makes my life a lot easier playing defense and then looking for him after a save. He's awesome. He's awesome.
All right, we'll leave you here with this, Luke. Rutgers, you mentioned it, another Big Ten team for you, another big one, this time on the road. Like, how are you guys feeling this week as you get ready for next weekend?
We're cautiously optimistic. I think, like you said, after 2 big wins against 2 Big Ten teams, you're feeling pretty good. But, we have all the respect in the world for Rutgers, some of their offensive personnel, how they're really well coached. They play fast, that NASCAR offense people talk about. that was actually for career start last year. I didn't play as well as I wanted to. So we're familiar. I think both teams are kind of familiar with each other. And they're kind of obviously coming off a loss to another tough Patriot League team. So they're going to be, maybe their preparation is going to be a little more intense than maybe it normally would. So, like Coach Timmy says, we got to handle success. We've got to practice emergency. And we're excited to head up to New Jersey. It's supposed to be pretty cold too. So maybe snowing. So we got to be ready for that as well.
Well, Luke, you've handled success so well so far this season. We appreciate you taking the time. Congrats on the hot start and good luck here this weekend.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
So from the college game to the pro game, Premier Lacrosse League action picks up this week. We got the PLL Championship Series coming at you starting on Wednesday. We got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before the semifinals and championship on Saturday and Sunday. Should be a lot of fun to see sixes played at this level with these athletes and these players. And you know what? I just want to say I love what the PLL is doing here. First of all, it keeps the league on the top of everybody's minds here in February. It's a good time for it after football has started, before March Madness. It's a nice hole to fill in terms of a little bit of exposure on TV and on ESPN Plus. I think that's smart. I really like that they're using sixes, but adding the 2-point arc and some other tweaks, because what it does is it allows World Lacrosse, who's clearly going to be watching, allows them to see what version of this sport can we get. This sport, sixes is here. It's not going anywhere for the traditionalists in the sport. So let's try to make it as good as possible. And I that's what I think the PLL is doing here, trying some different rules. How do we make this version of it as entertaining as possible so we can continue to grow the game? So I love what the PLL is doing. I'm very interested to see what the 2-point arc looks like, how that changes some of the spacing with sixes, because I think that's one of the things with the World Games we saw this past summer. The spacing is unique because it's like basketball without a 3-point line. The spacing is different when you have the 3-point line, and that can stretch the defense out a little bit and create more room inside, and it increases the ability to score from outside, and you got to defend further out as well. So I really do really like the idea, and I can't wait to see the show that they put on here with the PLL Championship Series this week. Speaking of the PLL, they got a new coach, Brian Holman. Obviously, the Cannons did not qualify for the championship series, so they'll be watching at home like the rest of us. But I had a chance to catch up with Brian, talking about everything that went into his decision to join this league and join the Cannons Lacrosse Club as head coach. Had a chance to catch up with him. So here's that conversation from this past week. Lucky enough now to be joined by the new head coach and general manager for Cannons Lacrosse Club, Brian Holman. Brian, happy to have you back coaching. It's going to be a lot of fun to see you back on the sidelines. Just what made this the right move for you in your coaching career?
Well, obviously, I'm not an engineer, right, with some of the computer technicalities we've had. So it's probably the right move because I can't do anything else. So, no, but seriously, it just just the thought, Travis, of coaching at these players in this league at the highest level. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I wasn't really sure I would coach again after Utah. And then, to get the phone call from the PLL asking if I was interested, I was extremely flattered and extremely grateful. And then again, the thought of being able to, teach and coach at the highest level was just something way too much that I could overlook. So yeah, here I am.
We know you're coaching. You've kind of coached all the way up a bunch of different levels. The pro game, though, is different. I mean, you probably have a different experience with it, how having your son Marcus having played professionally for so long now. What's your feel on what it's going to be like coaching pros compared to college or high school kids?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that was really the question that I had to ask myself before I really dove into this is, how does this work? Is my style, is what I'm used to going to be able to translate into the professional level? Obviously, we're not around each other every day. We're not in the locker room. Guys can't stop into my office and sit and have a piece of candy and talk about their life. But so that's a challenge, and that's a challenge I'm really excited for because I think it can translate, right? you just, got to use a different method, our methodology. Our message, we're going to be the same about team and culture and unity and accountability. All those things can be the same. They just got to be delivered in different ways, right? And I think my advantage, if I do have one, is that I do have a son that played, and I also had 2 assistant coaches that played. So I was around Will and Mark and Adam, for 4 or 5 years, and I could hear all their experiences. I could hear the things that they liked. They talked about the things that they didn't like, and I think I'll be able to supply or give to our players, some of those things that maybe they were missing. Great challenge, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most intriguing things to me, because I was talking about this with Andy Copeland that back in the fall, and it was the same thing. It's like it does feel like a lot of these pro guys, they do want to be coached. It's just a different style in which maybe they were coached when they were 15 to 18 to 19 years old.
Yep. And I think that's the job of a coach, right? It's the job of a parent. Like you don't talk to an 18-year-old the same way you talk to your 7-year-old. And so what I find intriguing, Travis, is that how do I get that message across, and how do we become a team? And again, that's one of the challenges. But the other one that's cool to me is, you have kids that just came out of college, right? That are used to structure, organization. Their lives were very organized, and
yeah.
and they appreciate it. You have guys that are in their mid-20s that are starting families, all right, 5-month-old babies, and guys that are getting married, right? So, and then you have guys maybe on the tail end of their career that are saying, all right, this may be the end, and I'm going to give it all I got, and then they got to figure out what they're going to do the rest of their lives to some degree. So, I find that extremely fascinating, and I'm so excited to kind of see where I can help all of those stages in their lives, adapt to what's coming at them.
So let's talk about the roster, because that has to be one of the things you consider when you look at, like, all right, do I want to get into this? What does this team look like? Do I feel like I can build off of this? What did you see when you looked at the Cannons roster right now?
Well, first of all, you're going to think I'm nuts, but you know me pretty well. I really didn't spend a lot of time doing that because, at the end of the day, all these guys are professionals, and they're all really, really good at their craft. So whether it was the Cannons or the Atlas or the Chrome or the Archers, they're all really good. So, and I also have seen all these teams play multiple times, because not only am I a fan of the Archers, but I'm also a fan of the league. So I do watch almost all these games, 90% of them, outside of just watching the Archers play. So I kind of had a feel for it. So to answer your question, I didn't spend a lot of time. What I'm excited about right now is this time that I'm spending with our guys, getting to know them one-on-one. I've had some incredible conversations with the members of the team. And, as my message to them early is, we're not looking in the back with a rearview mirror. There's a country song out now. I'm a big music fan, but I like country music a lot. I think this guy's
I'm with you.
Jelly Roll. He talks about ripping the rearview mirror off of his truck.
Yeah.
Because he's had a tough past, and all he wants to do is look ahead. Right. And, that's how I feel about our team, is that we're not going to spend a lot of time looking back there. We're going to focus on what's in front of us, get to know each other at a really high level, and then see what's forward. But, that being said, I do know what we have, and I have a sense of what we need. And the players do too. That's the thing, right? They're giving me the message of, this is who we are. This is what we do well. These are the areas that we need help in and get better at. So I'm listening to them, and we're going to formulate a good plan coming up, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, the marquee guy that everybody looks at when you see this organization is Lyle Thompson. That has to be exciting to be involved in, having a chance to coach an offense that involves him. What does that feel like?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at it. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever had the privilege of coaching one of the world's greatest players. It's, I'm just humbled, honestly, and I'm excited, to really get to know him as a person, and we've all kind of heard bits and pieces of the story and this, that, and the other. I want him to get to know me, and me to get to know him, and then we'll figure out how that all fits into the puzzle of the Cannons team, and then the offense. But yeah, I mean, he's a generational player, but I think more so he's a generational young man that a lot of our guys, should aspire to be like. So
We talk about Marcus and the Archers. I wonder, has there ever been a time, or when is the last time you ever coached against one of your kids?
Wow. I have to say no.
That's kind of what I thought.
I haven't thought about it because most of their time growing up, I was coaching them, all of them. And then, Carolina, Matt, Mark, and Sydney all went there. We were all in the same color. So I don't think so.
So you've been blessed. So what's that first Archers game going to be like?
I don't know. Again, I've not spent a whole lot of time thinking about it, but I think it'll be awesome. I know how competitive he is, and I know how competitive I am. I know how competitive my wife is, so I'm not sure what she's going to do. I think she'll have the issue, probably more so than Mark and I. But at the end of the day, it's, he's my boy, and I love him, and I only want what's best for him. And I know that that's what he wants for me. So somebody will be a winner, somebody will be a loser, but we're still going to love each other and be family. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. I have to think that, I mean, because obviously part of the commitment in coaching in this league is the travel every week for the entire summer. I have to think having Marcus be in all those same locations has to play a part in this. Am I right?
Oh yeah, it'll be awesome. Right. Instead of watching him on television, I can sit in the stands and watch, and be around. And we have I'm blessed. I mean, Mark and I have an extremely it's just an incredible relationship. I have it with all my kids, but obviously it's different with Marcus because I was on the sidelines with him at UNC. He was coaching with me at Utah for all those years. So, we have a great appreciation for each other as human beings. It'll add an extra element to the fun of the whole process for sure.
The way college lacrosse is now with the transfer portal and building rosters, I guess it's maybe not quite as non-similar to the pro game as it maybe used to be. Well, how have you kind of thought about how you're going to manage going about maybe some free agency and trades and the draft and things that'll be approaching here in the offseason?
Yeah, great question, Travis. That's also one of the reasons that this job really excited me, because it is different. Right. There are other avenues that can allow you to alter your roster, and do it, I don't want to say quickly, because nothing that's ever lasting is done quickly. But it allows you to make some moves. And, so I'm excited about all the avenues, right? The draft, we only have 2 picks, but so be it. We're going to make the best out of those 2 picks. I think my familiarity with the college game is going to help me a little bit there, with my contacts, and maybe able to find some kids that were undrafted, that have ability. The free agency is new for everybody this year. I'll be curious to see how that works out, if there really is a big free agent market, because we don't know yet, right? But there'll be some guys there that we'll target. But at the end of the day, it's slow and steady is going to win the race. We want to build the Cannons around what the Cannons are going to be, right? And we clearly haven't defined that yet. The type of people we want in the locker room, the style of play that we're going to bring to the league. So as we continue to develop those concepts, then those players will come available to us no matter what. Right. So it's a cool aspect of the job for sure.
You obviously put a lot of heart, soul. Your family moved out there to Utah. I wonder how much you still keep tabs on that program, knowing what you helped kind of start there and watching them have a chance to compete in a conference title game this past year.
Yeah, incredible. Not kinda. We did. We started it, right? Like we built that baby from scratch, and our hearts and souls and lives were put into it. And those kids are, I couldn't be more proud. I stay in touch with a lot of them. I got a ton of texts. They know I like to text. Just I don't have Instagram and all that other stuff, so they know not to bother me there. But I guess that's probably something I'll probably end up getting into. But just wishing me the best. Some of those guys are saying, "Hey, coach, I'll be eligible for the draft, this year." And there are some kids out there that I we're going to take a look at. I mean, they've grown up, they're men. But I couldn't be more proud of what they're doing and how they've carried on what we tried to instill in them with the style of play, but more so who they are as human beings. I follow them, and Drew's done a great job, and he'll continue to build that program in the fashion that he knows that it was built on. So, yeah.
Well, Brian, we can't wait to see you back on the sidelines this summer in the PLL. We can't wait. Thanks so much for the time, and good luck as you continue to build out this roster. We'll be watching.
I appreciate it, Travis. I really do. It's always fun to talk to you, and you do a really good job for our sport. I know where your heart and you're dedicated to it, so I appreciate the time.
Appreciate that, Brian. Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
A big thank you to Brian Holman for taking some time. I'm really excited to see him back on the sidelines now in the pro game coming up this summer. So as I announced at the start of the show, today is my last Lacrosse Now. The plan is for me to still call college lacrosse games for the rest of the season here for Lacrosse TV, but today, my final day working full-time at this network. It's a bittersweet feeling. I'm excited for what's next here with me in my career, but I've spent more time at this place than any job I've ever had. I had a lot of life happen here. I lived out some of my ultimate dreams, both personally and professionally, while I've been at this place. I'll forever be grateful for the opportunities I've had. Never in a million years did I think the sport of lacrosse was going to take me all the places it has during my time here. Never did I think it was going to become such a big part of my life. But here we are. As so many have figured out when they're introduced to this sport, it is such a powerful vehicle to take you places you've never been. For me, it simply has been awesome. Just over 7 years ago, I took this job, having only a moderate understanding of the sport of lacrosse and really no idea about this community I was about to join. Since that time, I've learned this sport is full of some really special people that welcomed me, even as a bit of an outsider at the beginning. All I've wanted to do since I first stepped on our set in the old studio was do the sport justice and hopefully inform and entertain the people in it. I feel like I've done that to the best of my ability throughout my time here. I have too many people to publicly thank, but I do want to mention a couple of groups of people before I go. First, my bosses here at the network, Chris Day, Rob Wallace, and Dave Gross. Thank you for believing in my abilities from the very beginning and giving me so many great opportunities with some incredible assignments, and it's taken me places I never thought I'd go. To all the coaches and players, from pro to college to elite high school prospects, thank you. We've had so many people give up their time to come speak with us here on the network. And I said it a lot through these last 7 years, but we really do appreciate each and every time that you came on and all the time you gave us to talk with us about the things you had going on in your career. Getting a chance to help share the stories of your teams, individual accomplishments, and all that, been some of my favorite things of doing this for a living. I really, really do appreciate it. But most importantly, to all the viewers, thank you for consuming our content. Thank you for subscribing at the very beginning. Thank you for sticking with us through those turbulent broadcasts. Thank you for watching. As I said before, I'm not going far. It's just going to be a little different, and I wanted everybody to know. The lacrosse community has meant a lot to me over my time here. and I'm really happy that I've had a chance to be part of it. So that's all the time we have for Lacrosse Now this week. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen and watch, and I hope you'll continue to follow along with Lacrosse TV as the network continues to move forward just without me in this role. And I'm excited to see you for some awesome games we have for you for the rest of the spring.